Ni hao, konnichiwa, shalom, bonjour, namaste, jumbo.
Bienvenidos! Hey, my name is Jadley. This is Reading with Your Kids. We are beaming out to you and the entire planet from the beautiful, historical, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. You know, here at Reading with Your Kids, our mission is simple but powerful, to bring families together through the shared magic of books and stories. Every episode, we sit down with fascinating folks who are creating books that open hearts and spark imaginations. Please help us grow our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, YouTube, Amazon Music, Audible. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. We have a fun episode lined up for you today. First up, Chloe Ito Ward is here to celebrate her new picture book, All the Ways We Learn. Later in the show, Dana Eichenberg joins us to celebrate her picture book. It's called Hank the Brave. Hey, my friends, I want to tell you about a coffee company I recently discovered that really lines up with the values we talk about right here at Reading with Your Kids. It's called Affirming Coffee Company, and they're doing things the right way. The coffee is sourced directly from certified Rainforest Alliance farms in Central and South America, with a big focus on farms in El Salvador. I love El Salvador. They work directly with local farmers, support sustainable farming practices, and even use recyclable and combustible packaging. Now, all of that would already make me feel good about supporting them, but honestly, the coffee itself, it's fantastic. You can really taste the quality. The beans are grown in rich volcanic soil and carefully roasted, so the flavor really comes through smooth, rich, and super aromatic. Now, whether you're somebody who loves a strong espresso to get moving in the morning, or you prefer a lighter roast while reading a good book, Afrera has something you're going to enjoy. And this is kind of beautiful. 5% of all their sales goes to charities helping conserve and preserve the great outdoors. So if you'd like to try coffee that tastes amazing and supports good people doing good work, head on over to afreracoffee.com. That's AFUERA coffee.com, and use the promo code READ to get an exclusive 15% off your order. And of course, when you use the code, you're also helping support the podcast. Great coffee and helping families grow closer together. I call that a pretty magical way to start your day. Hey, this is a message for all the authors that are listening. You know, you worked hard on your book. You spent months, maybe years, writing, revising, dreaming, and believing. You created characters, solved problems, overcame doubts, and brought a story into the world that only you could tell. Now it's time to help readers discover it. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program was created to celebrate outstanding children's books and to help authors reach more families. When a book earns our seal of approval, we don't stop with an award certificate. We review the book, feature it on the podcast, share it across social media, and help introduce it to parents, teachers, librarians, and caregivers who are looking for great books to share with kids. Because your story matters. And the families who need your story deserve a chance to find it. Please visit readingwithyourkids.com and click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to learn more. That's readingwithyourkids.com. Let your book find the readers it was written for. We are really excited to learn about a brand new picture book from our guest. The name of the book is All the Ways We Learn. Please welcome to the show, Chloe Ito Ward. Hey, Chloe, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. All the Ways We Learn. What an interesting title for a book.
Thank you. It comes from a line in the story, and it actually wasn't the original title. I don't know if you know a lot about picture books, but many times they're written and the title changes. So I think the first title was What Learning Looks Like. Oh. And that is talked about in the book. But All the Ways We Learn was a little bit of a better fit.
Okay. Okay. And was that your choice or was it your editor's choice?
Uh, it was sort of both. So I originally had What Learning Looks Like, and that was sort of like a temporary hold. Like I knew that wasn't it down in my heart. But I hadn't quite figured it out. So I think the editor, Nicole, though, is the one that might have suggested. It's been so long, I can't quite remember. But yeah, I think Nicole suggested it, and I was like, wow, that's great. It's a perfect fit.
Perfect. I love it. Yeah, I have learned a lot about the kids' book industry, the picture book industry. There's so many things about kids' books and the way they're published that have surprised me over the years. Like, I think the first thing that blew me away was we had the owner of Familius Publishing, a small publishing house in California, tell me that it can take anywhere from 4 years from the time that he buys a book until the time that it hits the shelves. I was also blown away by the fact that most traditionally published book, there is no conversation between authors and illustrators. That was a big surprise for me. But I wasn't surprised to learn that when an author sells a manuscript, you are selling your manuscript, and the editor and the publisher may do a lot of changes with it that you don't have any control over once you sell it.
So sort of, yes. So they have there's a very large process that goes into it. So the way a story starts may not be how it ends. I think this book is actually a really great example of this, because the editor, Nicole, she really liked my writing style, but she felt that it skewed older than what the imprint Penguin, Rise Penguin Workshop typically acquires and publishes. So I had to sort of adjust my writing style a little bit. I typically write to a little bit of older picture book audience, and Rise Penguin Workshop is for kids 0 to 5. So it skews much younger, and I usually write pretty lyrically, and I love to put like similes or metaphors, sometimes slightly complicated words, 1 or 2, not very many. But this book doesn't have any of that. So because it is for the littlest learners, and we really wanted it to be accessible to readers, so this story really transformed over the process. Like, I think if I went back and I looked at the beginning, I would see it has the same structure. It has a lot of the same elements. But some of the format changed, some of the words, some picture books that I've sold have not changed at all. Like I'll work with an editor and we'll do very limited edits. But for the most part, everybody who works on a book obviously wants to make it the best that it can be. And so everybody has different ideas and different opinions. Sometimes they align, sometimes they don't. But for the most part, I find people are pretty flexible. So sometimes an editor might make a suggestion and I'll agree with it. And I'm like, that makes sense. That works. Every now and then though, it's either the word that I really want to use, or there's something I really want to include, and I'll push back a little bit and say, no, I think that this needs to stay, or I like this the way it is, or I would prefer to do something different. And they've always been really receptive to that. I've never had I know that's not everybody's experience, but I've never had someone be like, oh, well, I don't like this, so I'm going to change it. It's always been like a really great ongoing conversation. Yeah.
So let's talk about the story that we're going to experience when we read All the Ways We Learn with our kids.
Yes. So All the Ways We Learn is a picture book that talks about neurodivergence in the classroom, and it highlights different accommodations and modifications. And it's all about sort of looking at what many times teachers or sometimes kids or parents sort of expect in the classroom, what they think learning should look like versus what it actually can look like or does look like. So it kind of toggles back and forth between those expectations and then different ways the kids actually do learn.
So what kind of learning situations are we going to see in the book?
So you'll see ADHD, autism, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, different ways the brain works. So for example, the first page opens with, sometimes learning looks like, and it explains like what sitting is, keeping your hands in your lap, being still. But the main character or one of the main characters doesn't learn that way. She needs to move. Her hands need to hold things. She might need to tap her feet. And then it goes on to things like making eye contact. Like sometimes listening looks like making eye contact. Other times it might be looking out the window or up at the ceiling or down on the ground, looking all around. So just because we've sort of been taught, or at least I was taught growing up, that listening looked a certain way doesn't mean that that's the only way to listen.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Now you use words like autism and dyscalculia, dyslexia. Are these words we're going to see in the text, or we're just kind of alluding to them?
So yes, they're alluded to. They're in the back matter. So anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about it, they can read about it. And I think any child though that is struggling with that, like if you are struggling with sitting still or eye contact, or, if you're reading and the words are kind of, moving, or the letters sort of like run together or flip flop, like you'll definitely be able to say, oh, like that looks familiar to me, or that maybe that sounds like me. And then I think that is helpful in a time to, flip to the back and maybe read more, talk to a parent or, a pediatrician to sort of get a better understanding of that.
So is your goal in writing this book, was it to help kids see themselves portrayed positively in the pages of a book, or was it helping kids who learn in a more typical fashion understand their peers who may need to fidget a bit?
Yeah, so it was both. So when I wrote the story, I really wrote it essentially for me. Like I would have loved a book like this as a kid. Cause I had a lot of feelings growing up, and I felt a lot of shame because it felt like so many of the other children in the classroom were doing things that they were supposed to, and it seemed so easy for them. And I was so confused because it felt so hard for me. Like I had trouble raising my hand. I was very impulsive and loud. And even though I knew that, you're supposed to raise your hand before you talk in the classroom, it was just so hard to do it. It was like I couldn't keep the words from coming out. I just couldn't help myself. And I thought for a really long time that there's something wrong with me, like my brain. And I was upset, I was sad, I was mad. And it wasn't until I was older that I sort of learned, like, oh, I have ADHD, and my brain is just wired in a different way than neurotypicals. And so I wrote the book in hopes that kids like me would see themselves and think, oh, my brain is like that. And that's not a bad thing. And then also that other kids would say, oh, like there's my friend. My friend is like that. So it gives sort of that mirror and a window, so you can see someone that's like you, someone that maybe has a brain that's different than yours.
Yeah. As you were describing yourself having trouble raising your hand and keeping the words inside, all I could see was my son when he was a kid, and now too. I love that this book was written for very young kids, because I think when kids are taught that, hey, we're different and we do things differently, and that doesn't, just because someone's doing something differently from me, it doesn't make it wrong. It's just different. And I think very young kids are able to appreciate that, maybe even easier than some adults are able to appreciate that. And I think it could foster understanding from the very youngest age.
Yeah, I think it's important for young kids to see themselves in books.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do see that from a young age, it becomes that becomes the standard. The standard is like being inclusive and accommodating and accepting, versus the opposite, which can be so harmful, especially for young children.
Yeah. Yeah. What's funny, we just had a international expert in terms of education and educational outcomes, and of course, Anders Slager said that and I just like to plug this because he said the biggest predictor of kids being successful and happy is whether or not the parents are reading to them every night. So if you're listening and reading with your kids, I assume that you're reading with your kids, and good on you. But he also was thinking that we're kind of schoolifying kids at way too young an age. And the idea that a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old should be sitting down at a desk in a row learning how to read at such a young age is probably not the best idea.
So I find that often the school day is very long. Mm-hmm. It's hard because, parents are working, but that is a long time to sit at a desk or to sit and listen or to try to follow directions. And, I don't know if you know this, but I taught kindergarten for over 10 years. Oh, and I learned very quickly that kids need movement. Mm-hmm. And, I had another teacher walk into my room one day, and she made this comment to me that she could never find me because I was never sitting at my desk. And I remember that that was a light bulb moment for me. I was like, oh my goodness, that's right. Because I like to pace the classroom. I like to sit on the floor. I don't like sitting at a desk. I can't be still for that long. It's too hard. And so I was like, why am I expecting my students to do something that I, as an adult, cannot do and is not beneficial to me? Mm-hmm. And, that sort of helped me realize and this is at this point, almost 15 years ago. So there weren't really fidget tools or fidget toys back then. There wasn't flexible seating. But I raised students' desks because some kids needed to stand. I let kids choose where they wanted to sit. I started letting them pull chairs if they wanted. We did a lot of work on the floor, either doing puzzles and things like that are more hands-on, but also using whiteboards or clipboards because kids love to lay on their stomachs. Mm-hmm. They like to kick their feet or tap their toes. Just sitting at a desk all day is so hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I ran an after-school program before I started performing. So we're talking 30, almost 40 years ago. And I remember the kids would come in and they would go right into another structured activity right from school. And mm-hmm. I thought it was crazy. And I just implemented, hey, the first half hour, let's let the kids come in and mm-hmm. socialize and have fun. Mm-hmm. And boy, the powers that be thought that I was just being lazy.
Oh,
no, because there's a lot of work socializing with these kids. But it just made all the difference in the world. It made the rest of the day in the structured activities so much easier for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here's the thing, the socializing and the play that is also learning. And I would say that is actually really hard work a lot of the time, right? When kids are talking to each other and working together and playing, often there are arguments. So then there's problem solving. There's social emotional things that need to happen, that are also incredibly important. And also, a time after a full school day where kids need to decompress a little bit. Mm-hmm. Kids need that.
Yeah. But I do. I look around and my kids were involved, and my daughter loved to dance. We didn't push it on her, but I was always amazed at just how structured kids' days are, especially compared to me. Now, granted, I'm almost 100 years old, so, but the idea that kids would just, as would happen when I was a kid, you had your breakfast, go out, come back when the street lights come on for dinner, that kind of thing. It just doesn't happen anymore, and I think we're missing out.
Yeah, kids need to play.
Yeah. Tell me, what kind of conversations do you think a family can have as they're curled up on the couch, or maybe walking around and reading All the Ways We Learn together?
Oh, that's a good question. I think as they're reading, they can discuss, how do you learn? How do I learn? How does your brain work? How does my brain work? Because our brains work differently. And what do you need to learn? So for me, I need to move. You can't see it because it's in my hand, but I always have, a fidget tool or a sensory tool if I'm sitting down. So that's something that I know that I need. And it helps if my body is moving, then it helps my brain from bouncing all around. And so I know that I need that. My son is very similar. So, knowing yourself as a kid is really important, and also being able to advocate for your own needs. So my hope is that as families read this story and they talk about, what sort of things help them learn, and how can we ask for that, in the classroom? Do I need tactile objects? If you have dyscalculia and you need help counting, was that going to be cubes, or, what other sort of tools can you use? Talking about audiobooks, that sort of thing. What does reading look like? It's not always with just a book. Sometimes you can listen. But yeah, I really hope that parents and kids talk about, how to advocate for themselves so that they can learn. And then also that idea of acceptance of, I see a friend and, that might be doing something different than me in the classroom. And that's okay. That's how their brain works. That's how they learn. And I might be doing something different.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's what a valuable skill to teach our kids, to learn how to speak up for themselves, to advocate for themselves, to let them know that you're not being disrespectful by saying, hey, it would help me if I had this. Exactly.
And we have to do as adults too, right? We have to model that. And I think the book is great to, open those kinds of conversations. One thing that I always tell when I have a new friend, I always say, when we're talking, I might interrupt you, and it's not because I'm not interested in what you're saying, or that I think what I'm saying is more important than what you're saying. It's usually because I get so excited. I can't contain it inside my body. It just comes out. And also I want to say before I forget, because sometimes I have thoughts and if I don't grab it right away, it's gone. And people are really open to that, right? Because sometimes, traditionally people will think interrupting is really rude, and I try not to do it too much, but, once I say that, they're like, oh, that's good to know. And so just explaining and advocating for myself has been so helpful. And then, I'm navigating that now with my son and trying to help him. It can be a lot harder for kids, especially because oftentimes I think they're not really used to doing that. And sometimes adults might not listen, so it can be a little bit harder. So sometimes you might need the help of a parent. But yeah, I think that's so important.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I'm so excited that you came on to talk to us about All the Ways We Learn. Is there a project that you're working on now that you can give us a sneak preview of?
Ooh, so the projects that I'm working on now, for the most part, I don't know if you know this, but are secrets. So with publishing, unless it's publicly announced, you don't really talk about it. But I do have one. I'm technically not working on it because my part is actually done.
Oh, okay.
It's called My Mind is an Ocean. And it is sort of similar to All the Ways We Learn in that it's about my brain. And it's also similar to All the Ways We Learn in that it kind of goes back and forth of showing both the positives and the struggles. with being neurodivergent, because I don't want kids to think that, it's all rainbows and sunshine, because there are also struggles. So it's similar like that, but my brain is an ocean. It's kind of like a love letter to my brain, and it's just saying all the things that I personally struggle with, but then comparing it to things that you find in the ocean, and then the things that I'm really great at, like creativity and empathy and that sort of thing. So that's coming out next year with Simon and Schuster. And then I also have a different book, which is not related at all to those, called Yuki's Special Delivery. And that's with Peachtree. It comes out, I think, next year around March. And that's about a little girl who really wants a bicycle. And she works at her family's service station. And they don't really have a lot of money, and they do a lot of trading their goods. And it's sort of about found family and community. And it's inspired by my grandparents who used to own a service station, and my mom who worked and helped there when she was younger.
Oh, neat. Well, I'd love to have you back on for both of those. So please.
Thank you.
Keep us. I'm curious, you talked about feeling different when you were young. When did you start, and what happened that helped you feel comfortable to kind of speak about your journey and your own, the way your brain works in such an open way?
I think, once I got a formal diagnosis, it was sort of, because it was something I suspected. I wasn't diagnosed until I was an adult. And it was something I sort of started to think, there's not something wrong with me. I think my brain is just wired differently. And I started to pursue that. And once I got that diagnosis, it was sort of like almost this relief of, yes, I have ADHD, and it's not that I can't do certain things. It's that my brain focuses on other things. So I think they call it, it's technically variable attention span. It's not really a deficit. So some things I cannot focus on, but other things, like, for example, writing, I could sit and work on writing or read a book for, 8 or 10 hours if you let me. So once I got that diagnosis, I just felt so much more, I guess, confident in a way. And then I started, speaking to other people that also have ADHD, and learning about their struggles and sort of seeing the similarities. So as a kid, I was so incredibly sensitive, and I am so really sensitive, and I would cry at just the smallest comment or criticism. And I just took everything so personally, and I thought, why am I like this? And as a kid, I was like, why am I feel like almost like a baby, the kids would call you like, oh, you're just a baby because you cry all the time. But it wasn't that. It was just, that's the way my brain was wired, is highly sensitive, really emotional. And now as an adult, I can see that more clearly. And I see, yes, I'm very sensitive. But that also makes me incredibly empathetic. And I think that makes me really kind, because I genuinely care about people. I don't even have to know them to care about them. That's just how my brain works. So I think part of that was becoming an adult and understanding ADHD more. And I'm hoping that I can really share that with kids, because I think the more you know about it, especially growing up, I think the easier it is.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about all the ways we learn and find out more about you.
Sure. So you can go to chloeitoward.com, which is CHLOEITOWARD.com. I'm also Chloe Ito Ward on Instagram. And you can buy my books pretty much anywhere books are sold. My personal favorite is your local indie bookstore or bookshop.com. So yeah.
Yeah. We've had a great time speaking to the author of All the Ways We Learn. It's a wonderful new picture book from our guest, Chloe Ito Ward. Hey, Chloe, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. It was great talking to you.
You know, one of my favorite family memories growing up, and honestly still today, is gathering around the grill in the summertime. Good food, kids running around laughing, maybe somebody reading on a picnic blanket while dinner cooks. There's just something magical about it. And speaking of cookouts, I want to tell you about a company our family has been enjoying called Big Fork Brands. Now, friends, this is not ordinary cookout food. Big Fork makes incredible bacon sausage, craft jerky, meat sticks, and those amazing Chicago-style sauces that instantly level up burgers, hot dogs, fries, all your cookout favorites. Their bacon sausage is kind of legendary. They combine hardwood smoked bacon with premium pork and create flavors like hickory and applewood, maple and brown sugar, and spicy 3-pepper. Honestly, it sounds fancy, but it's really just fun, delicious food families can enjoy together. And another thing I really appreciate, they work with small Iowa farms, raising heritage hogs outdoors without any antibiotics. So there's a real commitment to quality and sustainability behind everything they make. So here's my challenge to you this summer. Plan a read together cookout night. Fire up the grill. Put the phones away for a little while. Enjoy a great meal together. And in the evening, reading together as a family. And to help make it happen, Big Fork Brands is giving our listeners an exclusive 20% discount. Just head on over to bigforkbrands.com and use the promo code READ at checkout. Great food, great conversation, great books. That sounds like real magic to me. Join us right now from the great state of Florida. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new picture book. It's called Hank the Brave. Please welcome to the show the very brave Dana Eichenberg. Dana, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Jed. Thanks for having me today.
Delighted to have you on. I can see you have some cutouts of Hank the Brave behind you. What a good-looking dog.
Thank you very, very much. We do. We've got our background set up. We've been moving and grooving with some readings at libraries and other great places here in the Southwest Florida area. So he kind of comes with us. He looks just like his real person.
Yeah, so Hank is based on a real live pet.
Hank is. And I do need to disclose, Jed, and I certainly don't mean to change the scope of this interview at all, but unfortunately we lost Hank on Memorial Day to a cardiac arrest. So it's been a little difficult for us and the family. We kind of regrouped, and I'm certainly appreciative of the opportunity to continue to honor him. And we've gotten great feedback in the last couple of weeks, moving forward with our book. And our second one kind of is already in the hands of the right people, because we feel there's a story to tell. And Hank certainly was the joy of our household and the centerpiece, and his story, which we share in the book. I was kind of able to kind of correlate with stories for anybody, not just children, but for adults too.
So tell me more about Hank.
So Hank was a very lovable 9-year-old boxer. He had lots of energy, Jed, as you can imagine, and as a descriptive of any boxer, is very involved, very, very inquisitive, just very astute in what he did. But he had one fear, and that fear was small buzzing objects. And when those things came through, and obviously we live in a very open household, open door household, mosquitoes, flies, all 6-legged objects come flying through the door. Hank seemed to change personalities very quickly. We couldn't understand it, but we watched it develop over the course of a couple months. We then ended up writing a story about it. So we went from this very barrel-chested, bravadoed boxer dog who we didn't think was fearful of anything, including dogs, people, or food, to completely a full transition of a very scared, shaking, fearful dog with the buzzing of a fly.
Wow. That's wild. That's wild. You know, it's funny. My daughter, despite what the dog looks like, my daughter does not have a pit bull. I don't care what anybody says. It's not a pit bull. It's a retriever. But these dogs are so big and gentle, and but they look scary. People are afraid a lot of times.
They do, and Hank was a big dog. You know, we live in a neighborhood with little dogs, little white dogs, so we kind of always kind of claimed we were the odd man out. But, you know, in the beginning, until you get to know him, I mean, here's a 55-pound dog kind of charging your way, and you're not sure. But my goodness, did he want to nestle on a lap or, you know, kind of reroute you into bed? You know, or whoever got to the chair first kind of won. So very, you know, as I've spoke here in the last couple of weeks, we just talked about everywhere he went, he gave his heart, and to finally the piece was he just had no more energy left for his own self to keep his heart. So we're very blessed for the 9 years. You know, it's been devastating to us, but we feel very strongly about sharing that. You know, the theme of the book really resolves around our love for him and the love that he gave back to us, which, you know, allowed him to be brave. So we're just really looking forward to kind of continuing that. And we know it's such a crazy time in the world right now, and with families and, you know, money and you name it. You know, the one thing we all have is love somehow. And if we can keep that at the forefront, then we're going to be okay.
I do love that idea that, you know, there are things that we're afraid of. And as you said, you know, money and the world situation. But things have always been a little bit crazy. I can't think back, you know, I'm almost 100 years old. I can't think back to a time that everything was A-okay and positive and roses and sunshine. There's always something that we're afraid of. But if we have love and we're there to back each other up, we get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that's kind of really what the cornerstone of the book is. I was writing it based upon a situation with our dog. I mean, I really thought back to my own times as an adult where I'd been fired from a job. You know, my family wasn't near. You know, my house was empty. And, you know, your concern is, how am I going to pay bills? How am I going to get through? And I think and kind of correlate those two situations, that if I probably would have opened my heart a little bit more, you know, I mean, I've always been blessed with a very supportive family, but if I would allow that to kind of overtake me, then I probably wouldn't have gone through, you know, back in the days, nobody talked about, you know, being depressed, or nobody talked about that. You just said, well, it's just bad luck. But I think if I would have known that and accepted that and knew how much, you know, my family loved me, you know, I probably would have moved through that a lot easier.
Yeah. What are some of the conversations families can have as they're sitting down, cuddled together, reading Hank the Brave?
I think there's a couple, you know, really key ones that we've heard families say, Jed. And, you know, one is talking about you don't have to be fearless. You know, I grew up in a coaching world, and we talk about, you know, you're right in the heart of the championship area, you know, Boston, you know, Celtics, sorry that they didn't make the finals this year. You know, Patriots are on their way back, but, you know, a lot of people talk about being fearless and being tough, you know, toughing it out. And that's not for everybody. So with families, you know, it's okay to still be fearful of something, but here's your resource to make you cope, or to make you feel braver, you know, to give you more courage to continue. And that's the thing we like. We're hearing from a lot, you know, we're reading this book over and over, and every night somebody says, I feel good because I have you, Dad, or I have you, Mom, or Grandma or Grandpa's reading it, and because they know that they love them. And I think if families, that's a given. We don't have to have any money to have love. We don't have to have a big house. We don't have to have great a great job. Love is what we have, and it's something that families will always be able to give. The second thing is we really love is, we have an exercise that goes with it. It's kind of the Brave Start experience. And, really to see children write down all of those people who they think love them. And a lot of the children start with their dog. A lot of the children start with their cat. It's amazing the connection animals have. And then there's Nana, and then there's, Poppy, or then there's Mom, Dad, or it's interesting from and I'm not a mother, so it's been really interesting for me to share these with my mother friends. What do they take with that? And it's the inside, taking a piece of looking at that from the children's perspective, which I think is so valuable. And again, Jed, I have no background in children's picture book writing. I just wrote a story that happened in my home and then try to utilize resources to get it out there. And now the lessons that the families are sharing of rereading it, and the energy that they read in the book or they see in the illustrations are so reassuring that, it's okay to have fear. And here's how we as the family or friends are going to help you through it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I've often heard, kids would come up to me after seeing me perform one of my educational magic shows, and they say, "Wow, you're in front of all these kids, and I could never do that. I always get nervous." And and how do you do that? How are you not nervous in front of all these people? And one of the things I say to them is that that the things that you experience when you think that you're nervous, the butterflies in your belly and you're sweating and your heart is racing, that's the same thing you feel when you're excited. So when I feel those things, I just say, I'm excited. I don't say, I'm nervous. I'm excited. And you turn, and I think we can do the same thing when we're brave, when we're facing something new. It's like, okay, I get to do this. This is something brand new.
And that's a great, what you just said, I get to do this. How many times do we say, I have to do this? I hear it every day. In every conversation, I hear it all over. I have to do this. And I've tried to change my terminology too. And I get to do this. I chose to self-publish, and people say, gosh, how are you fighting that? How are you marketing? And I'm like, well, I get to do it because if the book falls in one hand or one person, one adult, and it helps them through, then we've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. We didn't set out thinking that, oh my gosh, we're going to win X award, B award, C award, or we're going to recoup all the money we've invested. We just kind of went about it in a way that we just hope that families can connect in a way that maybe they couldn't before. And if it's a 32-page picture book of about a dog that we absolutely adored, then we're happy to oblige that.
Yeah. You mentioned that you came from a coaching background. You were a real successful athlete in high school and college.
Yeah, it's a long way back. You said 100 years for you. I'm about 57 on that. But I went to high school in Greenwich, Connecticut. Had a great career there. Went on to be fortunate enough to play at Penn State. Penn State basketball led me to a gig over in Germany for a year. At the time, there was no I was pre-WNBA, so that you had to pack your bags and go to Europe, which was a blessing in really so many ways. To be able to travel the world, somebody was paying you. I spent a year, and then I decided that I wanted to coach. So I had a service-oriented heart, came back, got my master's degree at the University of Illinois, spent the next 20 some odd years moving up the charts of women's basketball in Division I. And then finally kind of got tired. The landscape was shifting, hadn't quite shifted to where it is today, but the landscape was shifting. And I think I'm a throwback to the old days where, somebody told you to run, you questioned it, you didn't really ask questions, you just did it. And those days are infrequent.
Yeah, I coached coming out of high school and college. I went back to the high school that I played at soccer at and coached and was very successful. But that was the 80s. And I look back now and I'm like, I don't think I could get through a season without being arrested. we coached back then. And we didn't hurt anybody. We didn't abuse it. In fact, there's one kid that I knew I used to torment because he just didn't work hard. And it was like, come on. And he's my buddy in social media, he was the last kid that I would have thought reached out to me. But it was certainly a different time.
It was certainly different. And when people ask me, I have friends now kind of in my world that they ask about that. Do you miss it? And there really isn't, I love the people. I love the prep, the planning, because that's kind of I'm a detail oriented person. But that's probably where you stop because, I have an expectation and sometimes it's hard to meet. And now that you're adding a financial benefit to that and that the financial benefit doesn't necessarily equate to the work output, that's probably where I go a little bit awry.
Yeah. I'm seeing stories of college players choosing to stay in college for 7 or 8 or 9 years because they can make more money. And that just boggles my mind. I'm like, but when did the world turn upside down?
Yeah, completely turned upside down. I say in a tumbler and then got shook like a martini.
Yeah.
So, it's really different. And I have great friends who are still involved and doing really well. But the whole adaptation too, and, unfortunately for me, I can bounce some ideas for them. It really is. You go from, we talk about the theme of the book is, you don't have to be fearless, and they're preaching be tough, but you got to find that happy middle because if you don't show the person you love them enough, they're certainly not going to perform in a manner that we all did back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. Tell me, what was it about your athletic background and your coaching background that let you know that, I don't have any experience publishing a book or writing a book or reading a lot of books to kids, but I can figure this out.
It wasn't easy. I mean, I mean, you've talked to several authors and millions, and it's a crazy world. I mean, I think coaching in athletics has its own breed. There's no doubt the publishing world, and now that everybody's divided it by traditional, hybrid, and then self-publishing, and then amongst all three of those concepts is, their own kind of skews of things. So I really had no idea. And then when I felt we had a story, Jed, I just, like I did if I wanted to improve my jump shot, I went out in the front and shot and I practiced. But how that correlated to writing was first of all, I sought some help. There's unbelievable resources. But even that, kind of filing through what's scam, what's not, what's AI, wants to sell you this for $399 and, they'll give you this. I just had to be really, particular, and I felt I had the time. So if I was going to make a decision to invest in it, then I needed to kind of do the work, and doing the work is the same way as getting out there and working on my ball handling skills or my jump shot.
Yeah. And I think that is also a great lesson that we can share with our kids and also remember ourselves. You didn't come out of the womb being able to shoot a free throw or a 3-point shot. You had to learn how to do that. You had to learn how to walk and talk. And it's something that's the same with all of us, all the different skills, all the things that our kids dream about doing. We have to learn. And I think sitting down with our kids and helping them understand that is a great lesson that is going to take our kids far in life.
It's a great point. And I worry sometime, and I've been asked on different podcasts and interviews, well, what do you think about AI? Can you use Claude? Can you use chat and all that? And I know people are using that at school levels we've been in schools. We've asked the teachers. We've asked the librarians. We've asked the media techs. There's always a way to get assistance. But I really don't, I think if we don't teach, and it's similar to our, Hank, if we really don't teach that it's okay to process these things, go through these experiences, and then you really don't ever succeed at, being successful at that. Or I'm okay being fearful because here's what I know exists around me. It's okay for me to be, this may not be my favorite thing to do, but I'm okay. This is an experience that I'm growing, experience that I'm understanding. This is an experience that I'm going to be able to manage a whole lot better because I have these skills. And that's work. That's work. No matter what no matter what kind of the obstacle or the challenge is in front of us.
Yeah. And the other thing I think, and this is something I share with my kids who are now adults, and my niece who is officially an adult but still growing and has a lot to learn. It's, boy, if you can push yourself, and it's like, I don't like to do that thing, but I know if I do it, it's going to get me farther. Instead of sitting back and saying, well, that's not fair that I have to do that thing over there. I don't like to do that. Your kids are going to be much more successful and get way more of the dreams that they're hoping to achieve.
That's so true. And that, I figured that out early in sports, and, fortunately I had success. So that was great. But in writing, I'll give you an example. When I threw the first manuscript out to early reviewers, I had no idea what to expect. And I thought, I had hives thinking about it. And I did the even crazy thing, because when you're self-publishing, you don't have a posse of these people. I threw it out to a Facebook mothers group.
Ooh.
And
okay.
I was like, oh my God, but it worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we got great feedback.
Great.
So.
And you were mentioning that there's Hank the Brave 2 is in the works.
We do. We wrote it. We wrote it a couple weeks. We wrote it a month or two after the first one came out. And honestly, sent it to our editor about a week before we lost Hank, because I had just made a decision. I had held on to it. Change some things. We didn't want it to have too similar of a context. We needed it to kind of expand, grow in its own. We really took a lot of feedback that we heard from the first one, and then we sent it. And we sent it on a Friday, and we had Hank's accident on a Monday, and we really said we had great conversation with our editor and illustrator, and they had done such a brilliant job that I think my therapy probably was going to be pushing forward. So yeah, we've got number 2 kind of on the chopping block, and we'll see kind of how we manicure it to kind of move forward.
Awesome. Well, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Hank the Brave and find out more about you.
Absolutely. Please go to our website, hankthebrave.com. That gives you everything you need to know, from about the book to me, purchasing options. We do have 2 purchasing options. We are on Amazon. And then I did choose to go direct sales. I am on Lulu. Or someone can just reach out to me. My it's dana@hankthebrave.com. And we certainly can send them a signed copy from here. And we always put in some coloring pages and our activities. We just try to load the family up on opportunities to kind of just create a great reading moment.
Awesome. We've had a really fun time speaking to the author of Hank the Brave. Our guest has been Dana Eichenberg. Hey, Dana, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Jed, thanks for having me, and hope to see you again sometime soon.
Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review, and of course, subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Chloe Ito Ward. Please be sure to check out all the ways we learn. Also want to thank Dana Eichenberg. Please be sure to check out Hank the Brave. I want to thank my team, Daylene Rose, Advina Lopez, Chris Doherty, Ella Badier. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the love and support she brings to my life. Most of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all the love and support you give to this podcast. I want to thank you for all the love and light you bring to the world. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.